All right. Well, first of all, I just want to thank all of you for coming this evening. I didn't realize we'd have a decent crowd like this, so I really appreciate it. Hopefully, there was some good networking up front. People get a chance to know each other. I'll talk a little bit about wrestlers and business, so just so everybody's kind of educated to what it is and what the future vision of this organization is. But for those who don't know me, my name is Aaron Grossman, and welcome to my second home here. We actually just moved into this office about 3 months ago, and I bought the building in 2016, and had this really big vision of what I wanted to do with this space as it relates to who I think we are as a company, and hopefully maybe. I'm not necessarily planning it this way, but hopefully when I talk today, you'll get a sense of culture as I kind of talk about some of the things around my story. But we're a staffing and recruitment firm, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And we work with over 600 companies throughout Northeast Ohio on a daily basis. So it's kind of a unique situation. There's not many companies who work with that many different organizations in a community. So I look at us as a connector and a convener in this space. And so everything that we've done here, and if you want to after this, you want to walk around, you can check things out. But we have 18 different meeting rooms on this floor and on the first floor, and we're actually giving these rooms away for free. So this room here is our biggest one. So anybody that you're working at a company and you want to have a centralized place to meet, you can actually leverage this space for free to do that. And for people who use it regularly, we actually have an app that we can put on your phone, and you can actually log in and schedule and book a time to come in. So we really want to make this an open environment for people just to enjoy the experience and be a part of this community, and really kind of make this into like a little city, which is kind of fun. So so as I talk today, this is kind of we're still working to launch this kind of young professionals part of the Wrestlers in Business Network, and we're piloting it here in Cleveland, Ohio. So there are different factions within, I should say different factions or different types of members that I think exist within the Wrestlers in Business Network. And just so you know, there's about 30,000 members that are connected to the organization nationwide, which is really, really cool. It's fascinating to me because when I started this, well, some people who know, I literally started this on my bed on February. I remember it was February 2009, and I was basically, if no one minds profanity, shitting my pants because I had started this business in 2001, and I'm in the staffing business. I'm about jobs, and there were no jobs in September 2008 till the end of 2009. It was pretty freaking scary. So I was freaking out. And I was very committed, though. This is when I definitely put my wrestling hat on, and I just got really hyper focused. It was like you got to cut a lot of weight, and you got to make weight, and then you got to get into that zone. And I went into that zone. I didn't open my mail for 9 months during that time, but I was trying to figure out what networks do I have that I can reach out to people and make a connection so I can figure out how to save my business. And wrestling was one of those things. And how many people here wrestled in college? So yeah, a lot of people. Good. All right. So I wrestled in Miami of Ohio, and we didn't have a program. So I didn't have an alumni network to turn to. I didn't have anything. So that was really kind of the start of thinking about, and that on my bed at night, it was 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, God, wrestling. I love wrestling. Every time I meet someone who's a wrestler, like there's this instant connection. There's always a conversation. I wonder if there's anything out there that says, that takes that connection of wrestling and applies it to what we can do in business together. And I realized there was nothing. I went on LinkedIn, and it was all like wrestling. Everything was a wrestling group, not like a business group for wrestling. So I just simply put, hey, I'll create a group called Wrestlers in Business. And I spent about 2 months, the first 2 or 3 months, every night coming home from work because I had nothing else to do. I wasn't opening my mail, wasn't paying my bills, to find people with wrestling in their profile. And then I created a message that talked about how let's come together as, let's leverage this sport that we all love and come together, and let's figure out how we help each other in our professional pursuits. Let's figure out how we help each other get jobs, find jobs. Let's figure out how we help each other and come together as one so that we can actually help the sport in a meaningful way. And so that's kind of how that was born. And then it went viral. And next thing you know, I remember coming into work every day and there was like 10 or 20 requests to join the Wrestlers in Business group. And then what was the kind of the luckiest part of this is that my business started to take off again. So I started to not pay as much attention to this because it was at that point just a group. Then I got this email from a guy by the name of Jason Effner. Anybody know Jason Effner here? Few people? Yep. So I get an somehow I'm on this email chain. I didn't know him at the time. And it just happened to be in Cleveland, Ohio. And he's like, he sends this long message to about a few hundred people that he's so inspired by this group that he saw on LinkedIn called the Wrestlers in Business Group. And he's like, I want to create an event. And let's get everybody together. And I'm like, and so I immediately found out who he was. I'm like, Jason, I'm in Cleveland. I'm the one who created that. And let's get together and figure this out. We brought Lee Kemp in for our first inaugural meeting. And ever since then, this thing has just blown up. Was asked to speak at the NCAA's in Philadelphia, I think in 2011. And then we really started to take off as we got involved with the National Wrestling Coaches Association. And just, it's continued to evolve. The types of people, honestly, now I'm a person, obviously, why I founded this. So, but I'm also incredibly engaged in just being very proactive around meeting as many people as I can. And what this organization has done for me by leveraging it, I've gotten access to so many different types of people. Some really cool people, from the wrestling side of things, even like, getting awards with Kyle Snyder and things like that, or just meeting really cool business people in Cleveland, Ohio. Does everybody know Lincoln Electric? Remember that company? So one of the cool stories I had. So one of the cool things in Cleveland is that obviously we're a wrestling community, and people in the business world are just so intrigued by this thing, the Wrestlers in Business Direct. They're like, I get it, and it's just so weird that all these people actually care about this and want to get involved with it. So I get invited to a golf outing he's now the former CEO of Fifth Third Bank here in Cleveland. Invites me to a golf outing in a foursome, and I think he knew this. The CFO of Lincoln Electric was a wrestler. He wrestled at Baldwin Wallace. I know there's a couple of people who wrestled at Baldwin Wallace, right? So the CFO of Lincoln Electric wrestled at Baldwin Wallace, and his brother was a national champ there, I believe. And the funniest thing is, so I didn't know that this guy's name is Vince Petrella. I didn't know he was a wrestler. And but this guy, Jerry Kelsheimer, the CEO of Fifth Third Bank, knows I'm a wrestler. So he starts talking about Wrestlers in Business. And then within 10 minutes, he tells me he's a wrestler. And for the next 4 hours, we talked about wrestling. And since then, we've gotten a few $100,000 of business with that organization. That was a company that was a very tough nut to crack, Wrestlers in Business. So I wasn't actually planning on telling that story, but I figured I'd start off with that. And I might make this interactive if it feels right. But I actually did want to start out with a story. At least my wife wanted me to start out with a story, but I guess I've already started with a couple stories. So I wrestled at Beechwood in high school, but I'll tell you my wrestling story that I think is something that it still is the catalyst for everything that I do and the success that I believe I have, because it gave me the mental fortitude to know that I can. And it was my senior year in high school, and I'll go through more of the why behind some of this, but it was my senior year of high school was the first year that I started to believe in myself. And while everybody believed in me for many years, that was the year where I finally said, I only have this shot to show people that I actually am good, because I hadn't proved that before. So I was on this journey to show everybody that this guy you've never heard of is going to crush everybody. So I started the season out doing just that. I went into a couple of different tournaments. No one knew who I was, and I pretty much tech-falled, pinned everybody. And then I get into, after I had 3 tournaments that I won everything, and then I go and wrestle this two-time state I think qualifier D1, and I'm beating them 6-0. And then we get the whistle gets blown. We're out of bounds, and out of nowhere he throws me, and I still never forget it because it freaked me out when he threw me. I wasn't expecting it, and he did launch me, and my legs are in the air and I'm flying and I'm freaking out, and then I decided I'm going to post my arm down, and as I did that, my elbow came right out of my skin. It was the most painful thing I'd ever experienced, and I was more shocked and mortified than anything else, because I'm like, you know what? My entire life I've been living in this sport. I've never proven that I can do anything in it in a significant way, and I was finally going to show everybody, and this fucking thing just happened to me. And I was so pissed and hurt about it. And the first 2 doctors I saw said, you know, you can't wrestle. You're not going to be able to wrestle again that year. Because I was just adamant. I'm like, I'm going to get back on this freaking mat. I'm not going to let this thing die. And I finally found someone who was the Olympic figure skating doctor. I remember her. She said, there is a way for you to come back. It's going to be really hard, but we think you can do it. So I worked my ass off. And mornings, afternoons, at night, I would go to the gym and I would lift weights with my left arm and do everything else I could to keep my whole body prepared, other than what I could do with my right. And I was able to come back for the sectional tournament that year, but I had to wrestle with my arm taped to my chest like this. And I pinned my way through the sectionals. And I remember they put me on TV for that. And then I pinned and pecked my way to the district finals. And then I got hurt again. I had a default in the district finals. And then at states, I got hurt to the state champ. I ended up going 2-2 and not placing. But at least I got to get to the state tournament. And I was one of the, I know that Sammy over there went to Beechwood. There was a time in my high school where we were good in the 70s. We were terrible in the 80s. And when I became a freshman, prior to me being a freshman at the Beechwood, there was only 2 guys on the entire varsity team. So it was, I want to believe that part of my experience is what helped kind of bring Beechwood wrestling back to life for a long period of time. But that to me was a story that made me always believe that I can do anything I want. I remember my parents, while I was working really hard, saying, you'll never wrestle again. Why are you doing all of this work? And I would get emotional about it, but I just refused to believe that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And so that's been a big catalyst. So I wanted to start with that story and how much wrestling means to me and what I've been through. So just managing expectations, obviously, I talked a little bit about wrestlers in business. I'll talk a little bit about our business accomplishments, just to kind of give you guys a sense of what I've been able to do in my career. I hate actually talking about this, but I just want to make sure maybe I have some good stuff to talk about. Some of my wrestling background, my struggle in wrestling, which is really, I think, is a catalyst for my success. And I don't know, as I talk through this stuff, I don't know if you guys are going to resonate with this. Some of you might have had the same struggles that I've had, but they were meaningful to me, and it's been able to actually be a help to me in my business. And then I'll talk about transitioning what some of the things that I've learned from wrestling and how I've actually applied them to the sport. And maybe there's some things I'll talk about that as I say them, maybe you're like, oh, I get how you could do that, how that can translate over. And there's probably a lot more that I'm not going to mention, but there's stuff I'll talk about. And then I'll just finish with some secrets to my own personal success. So I want to make sure you guys know that. So again, wrestlers in business, I talked a little bit about that, but it's to build a community that serves as a platform to connect our members and facilitate business and job opportunities across the nation by leveraging talent-rich pipeline of wrestling alumni with the ultimate byproduct of increasing reinvestment back to the sport. Who wrestled at Cleveland State? So I'm assuming some of you guys know that I was one of those people that helped you guys at a terrible time, and I think that really was a catalyst for the United States to look at what wrestlers in business could do, because I'm not a Cleveland State alumni, never wrestled there in my life, but Cleveland is the heartbeat of wrestling, and I think that we need to support our Division I programs here. And so there was a bunch of us who got together who weren't alumni of Cleveland State that came together to kind of help figure out how we keep that program alive and successful. So that's kind of what the byproduct of having one community of people who love wrestling and not necessarily thinking about what high school team you wrestled for or what college team you wrestled for. It's we're all wrestlers. We've got this amazing sport that makes us great human beings. Let's all figure out how to come together to make sure this thing lives on for our kids and their kids. So just as far as the value proposition wrestler business, so you guys know, business to networking dealings, I mean, I hear this everywhere throughout the country. There's so much of this stuff going on. We actually knew a better job of capturing it, sharing our stories around this, but there's a ton of this that's going on. Internship and career opportunities, there's a ton of that that's going on within the network as well. I just talked to you about reinvestment back to the sport. Mentorship and advisory services are happening. There's a lot of very successful people in this organization. You know, there are billionaires in this organization, and they're accessible, which is really cool. And then obviously the social connections like we had tonight. You know, hopefully people got a chance to meet each other and people that they haven't met before, haven't spoken to in a while. And then if you're not a member now, so I don't know if you can see that. It's wrestlersinbusiness.org. We actually just launched a new website last week. So feel free to register. I think to be a member, it's $50 a year. Hey, Neil, how you doing? There's Neil Waxman. He's a board member on Wrestlers in Business. So you know, feel free to access this if you are a student athlete, or maybe I think at this age, I think it's $25. I think there's an age part of this, so you can join for $25 or it's $50, but it's not really expensive, and there's a lot of value that you can receive from this. Any questions about Wrestlers in Business at all? Before I begin? All right, so I'm going to start talking about my business, my journey around things. So this is Talent Launch. So this is the business that I have today. This is one of my businesses, I should say, I have today. This is a Talent Launch is a network of independently operated staffing and recruitment firms, employment agencies. Does anybody know about staffing or recruitment or employment agencies? I know we got one, two, yeah, because they've been in it. So there's actually, I didn't know about it either. You know, I didn't know this thing existed when I was in college, and it's a $150 billion industry. There's actually a lot of wrestlers that are very successful in this space because there's actually a lot of money to be made in it, and you're helping people at the same time. And there's stuff within our industry that just really translates well to wrestling because you get to kill what you eat. It's very competitive and it's very attainable goals. You know what you have to do to get to that outcome. And so a lot of wrestlers tend to work in this space and really be very successful at it. So Talent Launch was something this is the most recent name. Today I own 11 different staffing and recruitment companies throughout the United States. We're about $100 million in annual revenues, a little bit over that. And we have about 200 internal employees. And we employ over, I think, 3,000 people, somewhere around there on any given day. So we have offices as far west as Eugene, Oregon, to east to Norwalk, Connecticut. So we're literally, I can say, coast to coast. We're one of the, I think, top 150 staffing firms in the country. I started this at 27 years old with nothing, and got really lucky. You know, I decided I worked for a national staffing firm, learned the business, did really well. Got a chance to manage a business for them, did really well. And when I wanted to start my own business, I got super lucky because, you know, it takes money to start a business. I didn't have any really, and had one dinner with one guy out of Detroit, Michigan that someone put me in touch with. Spoke to him for 45 minutes about what I thought I could do and my passion for what I was going to do. And he literally gave me $250,000 the next day to do it. I don't know why the hell he did that. And he didn't know, actually, when I bought him out in 2012 and we're at lunch and he's got this big check, he made a lot of money off of it. I'm like, why did you do this? I was 27 years old. I didn't have a business plan. He's like, I have no fucking idea, but I'm glad I did. And so I was, you know, I will always say, if you ever meet a successful entrepreneur, luck is a part of that. You know, I know people will say you got to position yourself for that, which I actually do agree. You know, I spent, there's a lot that I'll talk about that wrestling is just it's the simplest things of wrestling that give me the courage and the drive to do things that most people just feel uncomfortable doing. And I just don't give a shit. I just go do it. And that's really all about wrestling. So, this is a company that Talent Launch is my core company. Our goal is to become a billion-dollar organization in the next 10 years. We're buying companies throughout the United States. So our goal is to buy 29 more companies, grow our businesses that we do have 6% year over year. And then voila, we'll be a billion-dollar company in 10 years. Drop the mic and be done. So that easy, right? So that's kind of the my state or national championship goal. This is, you guys are in a new office. Again, feel free after we're done here if you want to go look around. I'm really proud of the office of what we've done. Actually, if you do walk around there, you see our wall. There's a Wrestlers in Business thing that they put down there. But this is just our new space. We have a whole full fitness center here too. So really proud of what we built and want to be a connector in our community and want to attract great talent to come work for us. These are just some of the awards to kind of give you a sense of what we've been able to accomplish. On the staffing and recruitment side, there's this thing called the Best in Staffing that it's a really intense, it's an intense competition, and they only award the top 2% of staffing companies in North America. Most of the companies that live in our network have actually won that award. So really honored to have that. Probably this is actually my favorite one, which is the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. If you ever watch Shark Tank, like Daymond John, they always put his award up there. So I was the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2015, and I was honored because the staffing industry is never normally seen as like this cool thing to be a part of. But we've made it cool and we've done it differently, and people on the outside have been able to see that and validate that. So really excited about that award more than anything else. But we've done a lot of really good things. Forbes actually last year, one of my companies was rated as far as direct search business was in the top 50 in the country as far as how they were awarded by Forbes, which was really cool. So this is another company. So I found out this year that I'm probably a serial entrepreneur. I didn't know that. Someone asked me to speak on that, so I guess maybe I am. So another company that I started last year is a technology company. So I've got Wrestlers in Business Network. That's my social entrepreneurship thing. I've got Talent Launch as kind of my core business thing. And then this was my technology play. So started a SaaS-based technology firm in 2016. This year we've raised $1.8 million through some venture capital firms, like if anybody knows Jumpstart, North Coast Angels, Ohio Tech Funds out of Columbus. So those are all people that are engaged in that company. That's downtown. I hired a CEO to it. We have about 16 people down there now, and it's really exciting to just be on the outside of looking in of a vision that you had for a business, which is really fascinating. This is my most recent one. This is Standard Wellness. So yeah, that is cannabis. So so I don't know how much you know about what was going on in Ohio, but they were issuing licenses, only a select amount of licenses for cannabis cultivation, and they were issuing 12 large cultivation licenses. So the Pablo Escobars of the state of Ohio for cannabis, and I joined an investment team, and we were one of the winners. So that's kind of our new thing. We're in Gibsonburg, Ohio, building out a bunch of weed. So excited about that too. So definitely involved in a bunch of things. So I'll talk a little bit about my wrestling background. We'll get into kind of the meat of why you guys are here and how wrestling kind of translates to that. So you've seen some of my success and kind of how I think about things. I will say that not everything, I think wrestling's been such a part of how I drive towards something. But I will say that the thing that is probably a little bit different is that my parents also were a big influence on me. They were terrible entrepreneurs. But they were very entrepreneurial. And the one thing that they've always taught me is to look at everything that I do differently. Don't ever allow yourself to see the world through everybody else's eyes. Take time to reflect and ask your question, why does it have to be that way? Because most of the time it actually doesn't. And my parents, the story around that with my parents was, delivering the plain dealer. And I was delivering the Plain Dealer. My brother and I in fifth grade. My parents had just gone bankrupt again with whatever business they had, and they couldn't pay the, I think it was the gas bill. So we had an electric stove. So my parents were, I just remember my mom like heating stove on the electric oven, putting in the tub so so my brother and I could take baths instead of showers, just so we can go to school like and didn't stink. But my brother and I didn't want to necessarily deliver newspapers anymore either, because we were wrestling and we were doing a lot in the sport. So my parents decided to take it over so they can pay the bill. And then thinking differently as they did, because that back then, this is in the 80s, it was a very much delivering newspapers of what kids did. Maybe it's still what it is, but it's what kids did. And my parents realized that maybe if you could deliver papers to a bunch of rich people, you can actually charge whatever you want. You could buy the paper from the Plain Dealer for a price and charge whatever you wanted to at the time to these rich people. So that's what my parents did. And next thing you know, they were delivering the 2,000 people every day and making over $100,000 a year delivering the newspaper. And that's how I got through high school and through college. And so I always just thought differently about everything. So I think that's part of what leads up to my overall success. Was wrestling was one and this was the other. So I wrestled. I wish my background was better. I wrestled at Beechwood High School. It was just a state qualifier, match away from placing, would have been 8th or whatever, 7th or 8th in today's world, but definitely didn't live up to my potential there. I ended up having a decent scholarship at Miami, but started out just they got me in on a national letter of intent, and eventually got half scholarship there as I proved myself. But I was just a Division III state qualifier, so no one thought at Division I level I would be anything. But it didn't take long for them, just like everybody else did throughout my life, that I had a lot of potential. I beat people in the room who were really good. Some were in the top 10 in the country, but then I would usually flop when it came down to an actual real match. And it got so, I don't know if I'm talking about this. Yep, my struggles are also there. So well, I'll go back a little bit. So high school, I had the same problem. Actually, ever since I was a kid. My inner struggle has always been the voice in my head. Does anybody have a voice in their head? Yeah. Does it ever screw you up a little bit? Anybody? Raise your hand. Come on, raise your hand if it screws you up. So yeah, mine did really bad for me throughout high school, my youth, high school, and college. So I was always telling myself I'm not good enough. I was always giving myself an excuse as to why I shouldn't or can't. And when it came really down to it, I would never showcase what I could do in the moments when I should have. And it bothered the shit out of me throughout high school. I actually quit. I was a much better football player. I quit football to concentrate on wrestling because I just wanted to figure out, how do I do this? How do I actually stop this voice in my head? And I couldn't get there. My senior year is when I started to show that. But then that, when that kind of fell short, even though I made state but had my elbow, that's kind of what influenced me to want to wrestle in college and continue to show people that I could. So got into Miami and reverted right back into kind of my old ways mentally, where on the practice mat, I would just show that I had all of this amazing potential. And then I would shit the bed in either wrestle-offs or in matches. And it really became frustrating for my coaches. So in high school, I don't think I shared this you guys yet. So in high school, one of my coaches actually got fired because he got so frustrated with me one day that he literally just out of nowhere just raced after me, jumped on me, tried to take a swing at me. They had to pull him off. Unfortunately, there were school board members coming off, but he was just so angry because he's like, he didn't freaking understand why I couldn't perform the way I should. And it really frustrated him. Now, he was a wonderful man and he helped me out afterward for many years, but that was kind of that was kind of my journey. And then I go to college and it was the same freaking thing. Coach, except then my coaches in high school were much more understanding and wanted to see me successful. When I was in college and I showed a lot of potential, but wasn't living up to it, my coach really got angry. More so, the head coach got really angry. One time he actually even put a crossbow out and said, The big one that everybody knows, everybody that I wrestled with in college with will always still say is like, Grossman, your life is like a toilet bowl. It goes round and round and round. You're gonna be like shit. So that that was. And then one time he actually said, he said, you know what? He came to me in front of everybody. He's like, one of us is gonna die one day, and whoever dies first is gonna piss on the other one's grave. That was his thing, because he was just so fucking pissed that I wasn't doing what I should have. And it didn't just happen with him. I remember we had a 190 pounder who was, at the time, he was 14th in the country, Andy Douglas. And I would beat the crap out of him. And he couldn't take it. One time we're running around, because I wasn't even starting. And I was a 77 pounder, he was a 190 pounder. And he just, one time, and these are these moments that really reflect on, that really changed my life. Because I didn't know everybody knew that I probably was pretty good. I just, again, in your head, that inner struggle. And I just remember him, we're warming up for the day, and he just takes me and he throws me against the wall, and he grabs me by my neck, and he says, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" He's like, "What is wrong with you? Do you see that you're good? Do you see that? What is wrong with you?" And it just, I never forgot that moment. I thanked them a few years back, because that moment really kind of helped make me think about who I am and what I could do. And then in wrestling, so then I blew myself up a bit. My junior year, I started to do what I did my senior year in high school, but my grades were pretty shitty, so I actually wasn't eligible. And my coach tried to find me over the summer and had me take classes so I could have enough credits. It wasn't necessarily my grades, as I didn't have enough hours. But I couldn't afford to take another class, because I wasn't on a full scholarship then, and I couldn't afford it. And my parents didn't have any money to help me, so he got really mad. I was ineligible, and I decided to do something against his word, and I got kicked off the team my junior year of college. And then so I was kind of, you get kicked off the team and you're done. I remember playing basketball every day, which is weird. And then it's totally weird. But I was committed that I'm going to come back the next year. I know people don't usually come back when you get kicked off, but I'm going to come back. And I came back, and I'll never forget, nobody on the team ever thought that I would start. I never started really before. I got kicked off the team for a year, and I just remember being at parties and things like that, thinking, you know what, I'm going to show these motherfuckers what's really going to happen here. And I was just adamant that I'm gonna start in this team, and these guys are gonna be shocked. And I remember it was after Thanksgiving, I wrestled off, and I wrestled 2 state champs, Division I state runner-up, and the Division I state runner-up in 35 seconds, and just dominated everybody else and started. And that was I was the comeback wrestler of the year that year on my team and stuff like that, which was really cool. There's more to that. My wrestling story didn't end well for me in that way. So it was I finished through my 4th year, started the whole year, was burnt out by the end of the year, because I still didn't feel I was able to be who I wanted to be on the mat. And then my 5th year, I told myself, this is my last year. I'm going to wrestle my way. I'm not going to let these people try to mess with me in any way. Went to the West Virginia Open. Just happened to be there. The Michigan State Open canceled that year, so everybody went to the West Virginia Open, and it was supposed to be a one-day tournament. There was 100 people in each weight class, and so it wrestled till 2 in the morning. I made the semis of it, and then that was my last time ever wrestling. So I came out of that. I had a mark on my head, and I had it cleared before I wrestled, that it wasn't herpes or anything like that. But then my assistant coach, who didn't like me at all, said, that's herpes. I'm like, no, it's not. He's like, that's fucking herpes. He's like, I can't believe you wrestled in this tournament. And I'm like, I went to the trainer, they approved me, and he decided, he made such a stink of it to have me voted on or off the team when I came back. And that was my last day of practice. So I just said, you know what, no matter what this is, I'm not doing this anymore. And I walked out, and everybody voted me on and voted the two coaches off. But so I that was the end of my wrestling career. Never ended the way I wanted it to end. But I say these things to you because I think they're all meaningful to me in my business career, because It just gave me the energy and desire and influence to really show everybody you guys were all wrong, and that I did have it in me to be who I could be. But that struggle has been something that still exists in me. But I told myself that when I started my business career, there is no way in hell that that voice is going to win. It's going to speak to me, but it's not going to win. I will do whatever it takes. I will take the risks. I will show everybody. And ever since then, it's been crazy. It's been cool to see some of the things that have happened. So I want to talk a little bit about applying what I learned in wrestling. There's much more than this, but these are some things that I wanted to make sure. And some of these things are going to resonate with you right away, and maybe some of these things will be aha moments. But accountability is one of those things. When I think about my career, it has been such a value lesson that I learned through wrestling. I mean, at the end of the day, you either win or lose, and it's almost always about how much you put in. How much time are you willing to put in? How hard are you willing to work? How much do you want it? And then more times than not, you're going to get your hand raised when you get on the mat. And that was a life lesson that I learned through this sport. And it's something that I've taken in everything that I do in my life. Everything is about how much time am I willing to put in? How much do I want it? And do I want to get my hand raised when it's said and done? And if it doesn't, if I don't get my hand raised, I'm not blaming anybody else. I'm always blaming myself. Always. No matter what, even if it could be perceived in this company someone else's fault, I'm the owner of this company. It's my fault. I didn't hire right. I didn't put a right process in. I didn't do something right. That's from wrestling. I don't know how much of you guys look at your life in that way, but I can't express enough to figure that out. Because you were on this what we call rock earth. You're on this rock one time. You have one time at this thing, and you own it. And the sooner you realize that, the more successful you're going to be in your journey. Work ethic is another one that's pretty easy, but it's how you apply it. I mean, all of us know, wrestling is the hardest sport there is. It's just a grind, man. And I'll never forget, I was a 190 pounder, 177 pounder in college, and I always had to have the heavyweight going up the hill, carrying them up here, putting them on my back. And I'm like, shit, these guys are heavy. And, or throwing, it was one of the coolest things about work ethic that I was proud of, because I didn't realize I probably did work really hard. But I remember I was a senior, I was a fourth-year senior at Miami, and we were having a conversation in the locker room, a kind of a heart-to-heart. And one of the freshmen was talking about how he was so inspired because he never seen someone like actually go around wrestling a practice. And I didn't realize he was talking about me, wrestling in a practice, literally going to the trash can, puking up my lung there, and then getting right back on the mat and going right at it. And I didn't realize that I had inspired this kid to realize that there was other levels you can get to. And that's what work ethic really teaches me, and how I use this in business is that I know that 99% of the people I talk to, 99% of the people that I work with have never taken themselves past the limit they thought they could. And I know that that's one of the key things this sport teaches. It teaches you that there are levels beyond what you think is real. I was telling, I might have been telling you today, or Pete, but today, my 12-year-old son learned that. I don't know what he's going to do with it. Learned that on Tuesday. He's a decent wrestler. He's 6th grade, wrestled the state champ. This guy, Bo DeJulius, anybody knows him. And he was wrestling Bo pretty good, but Bo started getting pissed and started really hammering him down. And my son, and they were going for like 6 minutes, and my son finally just collapsed. He couldn't breathe, and he was scared shitless. He thought he was going to die. And I'm like, get back up. You're not going to die. But that was that first moment. As you guys know what that moment is, when you think you're going to die because you can't breathe, and then you figure out you still can go. That's where he was at. That was the first moment. Now he gave up. He didn't get back on the mat. My hopes are is that I can teach him to figure out how to figure out that next level and keep going. You're not going to die. I will preface that I did realize there are limits in my life. So I operated this way, and then when I was 31, I did have a heart attack. There are limits, I guess. So I've learned that the hard way, but I didn't think that way in college when we were young. Good shit. So the perseverance is another thing that I think is something that wrestling really taught me. And again, my story, I talked a little bit about getting kicked off, having to get kicked off the team my junior year and coming back my senior year and starting. That to me taught me that I can, if I want to, do whatever it is that I want to do. And I can persevere through anything. And I do remember one match in particular where I put that into play probably more than I had done in other matches. And I was wrestling this kid from Purdue, and I was down. And I thought the kid wasn't that good. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting beat by this kid. And there's like 13 seconds left. And I'm like, and I just remember that was like one of those moments where you just remember, I'm like, I'm not going to fucking lose to this kid. And like 13 seconds left, I literally stood up, got out, took him down, and won the match by a point. And again, that was like one of those experiences. And I know you guys have those experiences too. But if you glean from those experiences and apply them to your business, you realize that most of the people that you interact with in your career in jobs don't have those experiences. They've never actually dealt with that kind of adversity. They never persevered through those types of things. So you can do better than anybody else because of that. The forward thinking, I was trying to think of a better word for this, but this is what kind of taught me. And I realized that it's been probably one of the most invaluable things that I've been able to apply to my business. You think about wrestling, and for me, this is kind of how I operated. I actually, starting in high school, I would write down my entire match. I'd write down different positions and what I could do in different positions so that if I got caught here, I could go here, shot, reshot, all of those different things so you can keep moving, keeping your motion. And really, to me, how that in business is about forward thinking. So one of the things that I always do, and I realize that most people don't, is I'm always thinking if somebody stops me here, what can I do there? And then if I get stopped here, what's my next move? So I'm always 3 or 4 moves in to everything that I do in business, everything. And so that to me is I probably look at that as vision. It's how much vision do you have to see into the potential future of things, and so that you're prepared when those things might happen. So, somebody taught me a long time ago, don't ever be surprised. And I actually align that to this mindset of just always thinking 3 steps ahead. And it's really simple. As wrestlers, we lived this in our sport for so many years. We've always thinking ahead. And those people who can do it very well can apply that to business, and it's really awesome. Teamwork, this is an interesting one, because a lot of people in our sport don't look at this as a team sport. I for sure think it is. It's a mixture of both. There's the independence of it all. You're the only one getting on that mat. But if you were the only one practicing that whole week by yourself, you really think you're going to get your hand raised? No. It takes an army of people to help you get prepared for that match. I had people, waking me up 6 in the morning. Let's go work out. After practice, let's do our homework and then go work out again. We were all doing things together. We're beating the shit out of each other in a room to try to get better. Continually forcing ourselves to go to that next level. That's teamwork, man. That's what I look at teamwork. I look at teamwork, and actually, it's a core value of our company here. This is our kind of our values and our pillars. But I look at teamwork as leveraging other people to help you reach whatever goal you have. And that's straight out of wrestling. Straight out of wrestling. Not everybody has to wrestle that match with me, but they can help me prepare. When I wrestle that match, I'm going to win. Positioning. This is actually probably one of the most important things that I've learned from this sport that I've been able to apply to business. I don't know if everybody looks at it this way. So, I'm always fascinated that when you start out as a youth wrestler, you're learning a double leg, you're learning a single leg, you're learning a high crotch, you're learning a fireman's, and you watch it hit when these little kids are hitting it, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so cute. But they're so bad at it, but they still can score points. And then you start seeing as it progresses, like the good kids, like suddenly they're hitting it with with the right angle, they're coming in with the right power. You're like, oh my God, these guys are getting it. And then you see it develop and develop and develop. You see great high school wrestlers, do it really well, and they win state championships, but they reach that college level, and there's even more of a level of that, right? And it really, what you learn is that it's all about positioning. It's all about how are you positioned in that shot? How are you positioned in your stance? How are you positioned in that finish? And the best people just have this nuance of taking it just a little bit differently than most of us. I mean, when you look at Kyle Snyder wrestle, it doesn't look like he's doing anything like completely oblivious to what we know. We know how to hit those moves, right? Most of us do at least. And it's like, but he just hits it with the perfect positioning. In business, especially in the services business and what I do, I look at this as I look at positioning in wrestling, and I take this and I apply it to communication. So I'm in the business of motivating people. I'm in the business of getting people to believe in something and choosing a choice that I would like them to choose. And most of the time I'm matching talent with opportunity. And I come at it from a good place, so I have good intentions. I'm not trying to screw anybody over. I'm actually always trying to do the right thing. But the only way I can convince people and do things very, very well in a very short amount of time is to improve on my positioning around how I communicate to people. How can I paint great pictures to create the alignment that I need for you to do what I would hope you to do? And that's really been central to my success, truthfully, is my understanding of that, of how important that positioning is. And I think this is what probably makes me in the business world, upwards of a national champion, because I really kind of always focus on that's my version of positioning, is how well can I continue to evolve how I talk to people and how do I get them to believe in the things that I have to say. Another thing that I've learned was be efficient. So, and what I mean by that is, wrestling takes a tremendous amount of energy. It's hard wrestling a 7-minute match. I was never known to be the guy who could wrestle 7 minutes incredibly strong. I'd get tired definitely in the third period. I'm sure other guys did too. So my thought was, I got to be really efficient in how I use my energy. And so if I'm going to expel energy, and I teach this to my kid all the time, if I'm going to expel energy, it's going to be because I'm going to score points, period. So if I was on the bottom, sometimes if I'm up in the match, I'm like, all right, I'm going to hold down here. I'm not going to look like I'm stalling or like that, but I'm going to hold down here for like 20, 30 seconds, waste some time. And then when I'm ready to get up, I'm going to spend some energy and I'm going to get up. But other than that, I'm holding on to it. That to me is really, when you apply that to business, how I've applied that to business is, and I joke around to this when people ask me, I say, I actually am naturally a very lazy person. So I want to find the easiest and best way to do something, period. I want to spend the least amount of energy with the most amount of results I can possibly have. And I got that because of wrestling. Literally, that wrestling is what taught me that. And again, I don't know if these things are things that you think about and how wrestling has helped you, but that has helped me tremendously. We are an incredibly efficient company. This company is incredibly efficient. For our size, we also are probably, well, I know we're probably one of the most profitable types of companies in the United States at the size that we're at, because we're really efficient at what we do. I only put energy where I can score points. And then finally, it's the discipline and focus. That's probably the other easy one that I think you can glean from the sport. We're cutting weight. You got to be hyper focused. I was cutting, 20, in college, at least 16, 17 pounds a week. And that taught me that that gives you that discipline and that focus. So what I would share with you, like, again, my story in 2009, this happens all the time, is I didn't open my mail in 2009. I'm like, I literally got as hyper focused as I could possibly get to saying, I'm going to make money. I remember telling my investor, I still had my investor at that time. It was November is when we started losing money in 2008. And I said, by end of July, we're going to make money. And I told him, I said, I have no freaking clue how I'm going to do it, but it's going to get done. And so I'd work till midnight, pretty much every night. I made a lot of different changes, and I figured out ways to find success. And one of the big successes I had that year was somehow convincing KeyBank at the time to go away from their national model and take this little company called Alliance at the time, and gave us the entire business nationwide. So we ended up pulling out of losing money that year and actually making a few $100,000, so much so that our bank at the time was Comerica Bank, and they were out of Detroit, Michigan. They never visited us ever in the 11 years I banked with them. And that was the only time they came to bank with us to let us know you're the only staffing company in the United States that we work with, and we work with hundreds that actually made money that year. What did you do? And so again, that to me was all about wrestling. It was all about I know when I need to, I will put the focus. I have the discipline that no one else has, and I'm going to use it in that moment in time, and I'm going to make it work. And that was proof that it can. So I'm going to finish up. I haven't talked too long. Which is some secrets to success. These are other things that I think wrestling has helped me out with, but I think hopefully can help you in your career. You know, one of the things is to check your ego at the door. There's so many people who have a lot of egos. They start creating success. I had a business partner that I started with who was one of those people. Got a Rolex watch, started driving a Porsche, and doing stupid shit. You know, fired him, and our business blew up after that, which was great. But I just am a big believer, and I think wrestling always taught me that. Like, you know, first of all, our sport, it's not a sexy sport, right? You know, no one, you know, I remember in college, people were scared of us. You know, we say you're a wrestler, girls will run away. They probably should have, but, but, you know, it's not a sexy sport. It's a grind, right? And so I've always kind of held that mentality. Like, yeah, I might create success in business, but who gives a shit? You know, I'm a wrestler. Like, I don't care about that kind of stuff, because if I cared about that kind of stuff, I'd do some other sport that is glorified that way. You know, there's a lot of inner glory that we get for the things that we do, the things that we did on the mat, and that's how I live my life in business as well. And so I think that's really important. The KISS methodology. Anybody know what KISS means in business or anything? Keep it simple, stupid. So someone told me that my second job. And I actually stuck with that. So these small, simple things that just kind of stuck with me. So I always try to keep it as simple as humanly possible. I think Pete, where's Pete at? Is he still there? He might have left. So yeah, he told me to leave. So he was telling me, because I got Pete Franz, I've gotten a chance to know over the years, and he's like, I've talked to him quite a bit, and he's like, you know what? He's like, what I've always learned from you, he's like, you're actually only good at about a couple of things, and then you're actually not good at a lot. And my wife would definitely tell you that. So I've done a really good job of just realizing that that's actually really okay. And I probably get that from Dan Gable in some ways. You know, I've gotten a chance to meet him and talk to him over the years, and I realize he's really special in a lane. And then there's just a lot about life that he's actually not connected to at all. But he's created wonderful, beautiful things with that type of genius to focus in that way. And so I've always kind of looked at, I try to align myself in how I approach things, that, you know what, I don't want to be good at everything. I know what I'm really good at, really, really, really good at, and I'm going to go ahead and do that all the time. And everything else, I'm just going to let it go. And that's my way of keeping it simple. So the first person that told me that many years ago, in my second job, so they actually at the time, because I'm not that smart, so I just would say, okay, I'm just going to do these things that I know I'm really good at. Everything else I'm not. So they put me in a corner because I had papers everywhere. And I was not organized. I was not good at that. So that's just going to be that. And then they would help me by, you know, for like Christmas cards and writing, because my handwriting was really bad. They would do all that because I would never do it, and it was terrible. And even now, like even today, so like I live in Aurora. There is nobody at this company that will ever trust me to take something from here to Aurora to give it to something and do something with it, ever. I will lose it every time. My wife, before I got here, she had this big thing. She's like, take this, and she's like, never mind. I'm going to mail it there. And she will, because, and she needs to, because I really will lose it. I'll forget about it. I'm not good at that. And so I have a lot of people who I have hired over the years to protect me in a lot of ways, because I've chosen just to be good at a few different things. So that's kind of the KISS methodology. Better ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. This has been my mantra for many years. Has anybody heard that saying before? So I'm a big one at that. My wife, that's my wife's one pet peeve about me. She actually hates that tremendously, but I've always lived that principle. It's the principle of an entrepreneur in a lot of ways. I'll always ask for forgiveness if it was the wrong thing to do. If I stepped on your toes, oops, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. But I'll step on your toes if I can. Not in a bad way. I don't mean to do that in a bad way. But what I mean by that is that I will, until you tell me I shouldn't, I'm going to do that. And that's that to me is also kind of a wrestling mindset. If I, you know, when I try to tell my son this, I'm like, when you get on that mat, that's your mat. It's not that person's mat. So you take control. You take the aggressive approach. You show whose mat that is. And that's really about how I look at the world. This is my world. So I'm going to do whatever the hell I want unless you tell me I shouldn't. And I'm going to have respect around that. But it's still my world. It's still my mat. And that's how I look at it. And I think all of us have that built in us to look at the world that way too. It hasn't done me terribly wrong. I've done some stupid shit, but not anything illegal like that, but I definitely will press. This is more around the inner struggle that I talked about. Trust your will versus the voice in your head. This is a message that I've been giving to my company this year. Because one of our themes is Unleash the Beast, and it's really about trusting your will versus the inner struggle that at least most of us in the room I think said they have. There's some other voice here. It lives in your will, and wrestlers are probably one of the closest people to actually be able to touch it, because we go to that extra mile that really exposes your connection to this will, the soul of who you are. And this is what helped me get through my business career, and it didn't help me get through my wrestling career. I really focused here than here for the greater part of my wrestling career, but in business, it's always about my will, and I've been able to do things. Finally, it's be genuine. You know, I don't know why this is a tough thing for really everybody, but I think as wrestlers, you know, we didn't grow up with, you know, at least I didn't grow up in the sport where there was really nice mats and nice wrestling rooms and, you know, beautiful pictures and all this stuff. It was, you know, you wrestled shit. You know, sweaty, it smelled bad, it's disgusting, and, you know, but, you know, what that taught me is that, you know, I'm just going to be real. I'm just going to live my life who I am and be proud of it, the good and the bad. And that served me well in business. If there's anything that I think people will have told me many times over my career, is that you just come across as a genuine person. And I want to believe it's because I am. I just will go, this is my life. I'll talk about it, the good and the bad of it, and I'm okay with it. And I think the more that we approach our careers with that mindset, and just be okay with being who you are and being proud of it, I think people respect that a lot more, and you can go a lot farther in your own careers as a result of being who you are and just being genuine. So I know I talked for a long time. I apologize for talking. Thank God you guys all didn't fall asleep. But that is it. So I got my email address here. These are other ways that you can reach out to me. Does anybody have any questions at all? Questions about anything? Business? Anything at all? What time are we out here? 7:40. Well, I think that's it. If you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to me. But I do appreciate all of you coming tonight and hearing a little bit about the story. Hopefully it was helpful. So thank you.